So I've just recently put out a video looking at a range of 251s in popular music and the ways that you can use them to modulate or just go round and around or, whatever. In this short little video, I thought I'd take a closer look at just one song and how it uses 251s throughout. So this song is the Beach Boys' 1968 song Breakaway. It's a really good song to look at because what appears to be quite simply just a set of really clear 251s don't necessarily end up delivering the very clear tonic you might expect, which is sort of contradictory really. 251s are great precisely because they point very obviously in a certain direction, right? So what's going on with this song? So first things first, obviously if you don't know this song already, go listen to it. It really is fantastic and it isn't anywhere near as famous as it ought to be in my opinion. Time will not wait for me. If you really want to appreciate fully as well, I might also recommend looking for the isolated vocal version that you can find on YouTube. It really is brilliant and it will help you appreciate how great the Beach Boys were as a vocal group. Here's a short sample. When I laid down on my bed, I heard voices. So Breakaway didn't appear on any of their studio albums and it didn't do that well as a single, at least not in the US. It did far better in the UK, like all their late 60s output, and it's probably one of my favourite songs by them. I really like it. So broadly speaking, before we dive into it properly, I think at a push I'd have to say that the song is probably in the key of F, if anything, but the F chord itself only appears a handful of times, less than virtually any other chord that's played in the song, and bits seem to be pointing more clearly to other chords as a tonic. Sometimes C, sometimes G minor, and occasionally D minor, which is, of course, the relative minor of F, so it kind of backs up the F thing anyway. Whenever one chord is tonicized, it's usually not for long. They never seem to linger there very long at all, and it ends up just being another place, another starting point to start moving on from again. So let's actually take that closer look. The song opens on a C. Easy, classic key that, isn't it? C major, gotta love it. I think it's fair to say that most pop and rock songs, most music, tends to start on the song's root chord. And ultimately, because we hear it first, whatever chord we hear at the beginning of a song, it's most likely going to sound tonicized either way, right? Because it's the only harmonic context we have so far. So if C is the one chord, that would make D minor our two chord. Okay, fine. Then we get a G minor. So we do have a sort of a 2-5 motion here, but it's not a dominant chord at this point. In fact, the next chord is, and it's that C again with an added seventh. So really what happened is we opened with a 5-6, 2-5, and then we get an F. So that's a clear kind of root chord. Nice. Circle of fifths type stuff with a 2-5-1 leading to F. But then what do we get? We get D minor 7, that's our 6th chord, I guess, but this time G7 follows. So is this now going to be a 2-5-1 but towards C? Well, what follows? It turns into a G minor 7 and then a D7. So it kind of went backwards again and then we start to go forwards again. Fair enough. Then to the verse, we get G minor 7 after that D7, which makes sense. This G minor goes to C again, so I guess this is maybe a new 2-5-1 towards F again? Time will not wait for me. No, we actually get an A7 to D minor. Time is my destiny. And that is a dominant to tonic movement, but without the preceding 2. And actually, D minor is just the relative minor of F anyway, so maybe that G minor to C7 2-5 motion does actually kind of get fulfilled in a way, maybe, just in a roundabout way. You might expect it to go G minor to C7, 5 to F, which is the 1, but that 2-5-1 gets interrupted and it turns into a dominant 7 to the relative minor of F. It works and it sounds great. But then we start moving in pretty much straight away with G to C on the next line. Why change So that D minor itself was merely the start of a new 2-5-1 motion, this time to C. But we're only on the C itself briefly before climbing down chromatically to B flat. So is that B flat the flat 7 of C, or is it the 4 of F? I don't know. Anyway, we then have the next verse, which is the same stuff again, but then the end of the pre-chorus ends on a G7, taking us back into the same chord progression that we had right at the start of the song. So the G7 at the end of that pre-chorus sets us up for what sounds like a C tonic, as it did right at the start of the song, but that ends up taking us back to that F, really, if you remember the whole 2-5-1 motion around the houses that I just talked about earlier on. Anyway, the song does this for a bit, round and around, verse, chorus, mostly via these 2-5-1 progressions, but never really lingering on any single stable tonic for very long at all. And then, after all of this, the chord taking us into the coda is a D7, but it doesn't take us to a G or G minor, as we might naturally expect, and we would probably expect a G minor given what we've heard throughout the song. Not straight away, at least. It goes to B flat major, then to the G minor. So if we are in the key of F, and that seems to me a bit questionable, is that coda just using the 2 and the 4 chords, or is the coda in G minor or B flat? Has it modulated here? Did it ever modulate? Yes. No. I have no idea, if I'm honest. I'm not sure if it makes much sense to say that this song is in a specific key. It's just a bunch of 2-5-1s suggesting certain movements and then fulfilling them briefly and then moving somewhere else, usually via another 2-5-1. It kind of feels like a set of misdirections, or better yet, actually, a set of directions to more directions. After all, in a 2-5-1 progression, the 2 points to the 5 and the 5 points to the tonic. But I'm not sure what I would conclusively identify in this song as the root chord or the tonic or as the single key. This song does almost invariably follow in the directions that the 2-5-1s are pointing, while somehow sounding unfulfilled at every point. I'm not going to go into much more detail here, but honestly, the best thing here is to just put the song on, get the chords out, and play along on guitar or piano, whatever it is you play, and you'll see what I mean. It's really smart and I think really effective, whilst also being really fundamentally quite simple. A useful exercise also could be pausing it at random points and trying to play the chord that you think that bit tonicizes. I think it is at different points, D minor, F, C, and G minor, just thanks to the way the 2-5-1s work, but maybe it's also B flat at certain points. You might actually disagree with me, which is fine, I guess. Interestingly though, I did also find this online, which is the supposed official sheet music. This seems to suggest a modulation from the chorus in F or D minor to the verses in B flat or G minor. And that works, definitely. But is it the answer? I don't know. I don't even know if there is an answer. Well, maybe you do, Brian, but I don't. And on a final note, I do like the way that the lyrics match the music throughout. They're vague lyrics, for sure, but they also work fantastically with the music. The 2-5 movements of the first line in each verse, the G minor to C, and then the dominant 5 to minor 1 movements in the second lines, A7 to D minor, they work really well with these like almost yearning lyrics that almost seem to reach for something just beyond the singer's grasp. And then the final line of each verse feels to me much more harmonically settled along with the lyrics. And then into the chorus, that C right after the G7, it feels like a kind of literal breakaway, whatever that might mean precisely, from the less sure verses, while still taking us on a journey towards these different conclusions. I don't know, I'm not going to go over all the lyrics in details, this ain't poetry class, but I do think they work really well alongside the harmonic motion of the song, as well as with, of course, the melody itself. It's such an underrated song, as I've already said, and deceptively simple. Nothing about the chords is particularly wild. It's actually all relatively diatonic in the grand scheme of things. There's nothing particularly rhythmically out there either. Instrumentally as well, it sounds, if anything, quite tame, quite restrained. But there's enough going on with those 2-5-1s that I would hesitate to ever call it a simple song or easy. I can't think of any other pop songs, I don't think, that do quite what Brian and Murry, I guess, did with this tune. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please think about subscribing and liking my content. Cheers!